DC United got a new coach this week in an interim fashion, and things were a lot different on the field, but same result. 3 points lost on the road to Chicago tonight in a 2-1 defeat. A cameo appearance from former, current DC United great Owen Goal, coming back to pull one back in the second half, but not quite enough for the black and red. We've got quite a bit to talk about tonight for sure, but we want to get started with the game here tonight. This was a very different looking DC United from what we've seen in really at all this season. The attacking presence was admittedly fun to watch tonight.
It was. We had several moments during the game when we kind of looked at each other and we were like, and it just didn't roll in. But I turned and I was like, when was the last time we had a moment like that? Like, we had those little battles in front of the goal. And as I mentioned, it looks like a team who for the first time in a while had been told to push forward and attack.
Yeah.
You could see that the effort was there, like the intention was there. Some of the crosses and some of the balls up just like didn't come off. But yeah, it was more offensive than we've seen and a little bit more fun to watch than we've seen in a little while.
As we're live here on Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast presented by Heineken. We were so excited about the attack that I failed to intro the show. John Lee joined as always by Sam Kastner, Joshua Morgan, and Michael Black, and we're recapping tonight's 2-1 loss away to the Chicago Fire. Gentlemen, your initial thoughts as Sam and I have given ours.
Yeah, I think the way you opened talking about this being 3 points lost, this is the first time in a while that I've actually looked at the game and said, yeah, we could have gone out and gotten 3 points there. The team looked like they had an idea of what they wanted to do going forward. They created opportunities. I think they actually had an advantage of possession. It was there for the taking. Now, you give up 2 goals on set pieces, which is a rough way to make it happen, especially when you generally think of DC United being a well-drilled defensive team that can handle those things. But they went aggressive and didn't really cost them outside of those 2 set pieces. So, definitely an entertaining game to watch and kind of disappointing not to come away with more than just positive thoughts.
Guys, I don't know how are you talking about a game right now? It's such a colossal event in DC United history happened, and you guys are celebrating.
We are a post-game show.
Are you talking about trading Pippa to Miami?
Yeah.
Or was it? It was the international slot we acquired.
Yeah. That's a 50,000 game that we sent.
We made money on international slot transactions over the last month. For the record,
we were lacking an international slot too, so it was a very important gain.
Listen, we're going to talk all about the end of the era with Ben Olsen's final game occurring over the weekend, midweek rather, and Chad Ashton stepping up to the helm here, but I want to try to stay focused on this game until we get through the press conferences, and then of course we'll talk all about what's next for DC United. But it was exciting to watch the attacking tonight. But one of you guys said it in the second half. It's like it felt like a team that didn't quite know how to finish. Like they were building up. And folks just weren't in the right spot, or the ball was just a little late. And it's like, well, I mean, that's what happens when you don't do that regularly all season long. And it's like, hey, this would have been a great start of the season game.
I was
and it's
just
frustrating
thinking that,
right? It's like
while you're talking about this would have been a great first game of the season of it just wasn't quite there, but we can build up, and there's a lot of momentum we can bring forward. Yeah, it's unfortunate that we now have 6 games left and an even wider gap. And
a lot of players who, for injury or whatever reason, had not played together. You're right. I think that's a great way to describe it, as a team that's just settling and figuring out how they want to play. And unfortunately, we've been hearing that for the last couple of months. And I think now with the change at the helm and having a new approach out there, hopefully we'll see some dividends in these last couple of games. The playoffs may be too much to ask from this team, considering where they are and where the rest of the league is, but it's certainly an encouraging thing. I think we just got word from the DCU team that we're going to have Chad Ashton tonight, as well as the captain Fred Briant. So looking forward to hearing their reactions to this first opportunity post Ben.
Yeah, and one of the things that caught, I think, all of our eyes in really the first statement made post Olsen era is the lineup that Chad Ashton rolled out tonight, which was a couple critical changes and things that were, to me, for the most part, exciting. I mean, I loved seeing Kamara relegated to the bench. I think we've talked ad nauseum on the show about just he's not had it, and boy, Rivas and Sorga had some opportunities in that first half. We could easily be talking about at least a point, if not more. And then also none of the kids in the starting lineup, which is a bit of a statement, and I'm not totally surprised. A new coach coming in, just trying to create some stability. You put the veterans out there. We saw both Griffin Yao and Kevin Paredes tonight coming on as subs. Interesting, Sam, you noted that Moses Nyman wasn't even in the team, which was a bit surprising. But the back line kind of was what it had to be. Yeah,
I think I saw a tweet, John, I don't remember if it was you. It might have been our friend Kevin. I don't remember exactly who it was, but they kind of said that it made sense that Chad was going to try to play the veterans, that he was sitting the new kids on the bench, the younger kids on the bench, just because they kind of have the most to prove right now, right? As like a younger player, you're coming out, like you're given the opportunities, you're making the most of it. But it really falls on the veterans and the people who have experience in this league when there's a coaching change mid-season to go out and to reaffirm that, frankly, they belong on this team, right? Because there are probably a lot more changes that we're going to see happen. Chad Ashton has only been named interim coach. We don't really know what's going to happen beyond that with those coaching changes. It's going to be signed permanently. Is someone else going to be brought on? So it really does fall to those veterans to prove that they deserve to be on the field, that they deserve to be playing for this team, and to really show that they can turn this around and play in this new era that DC United is about to have.
I completely agree with what you guys are saying. Those are valid points. Also, it's just crazy times in our country still, so we don't know what people falling out of the lineup. That could be illness, training, whatever.
Yeah, it looks like Chad Ashton is at the podium, so let's send it over for his first post-game press conference.
To talk, I just wanted to get your general thoughts on the team's response tonight to what was obviously a pretty challenging week, and additionally, just curious what you thought of Edison Flores's performance.
Just happy to see him out there, first of all. I thought early when he got in there, I thought he, was causing him a lot of problems. As it started to get later, I wish we could have found him, or he could have found the ball a little bit more. But for not having been out there in a long, long time, I thought he looked pretty sharp. So it was really nice to have him out there. As far as the performance, overall, I would say it was a pretty good performance. We did a lot of the things that we talked about over the past few days. We did a better job with the ball. We did a better job of creating chances. But we gave up 2 set-piece goals that, for me, are just soft. And we've got to start the game better. We've got to not dig ourselves a hole. And just do the little things. That's how you win games. That's how you pick up points. But I do feel like we did a good job and we took some steps forward.
We'll go to Thomas Floyd next. Thomas, go ahead.
Hey, Chad. Thanks for taking the time. What were your thoughts on how you implemented that press tonight and your ability to cause Chicago some problems as they build out of the back?
I thought we didn't start perfect, and then I thought it started to work. I thought it started to be effective. And then I thought the last 5 to 8 minutes of the first half that we started to get a little tired, and we were a little fragmented when we were trying to press, and they were starting to play through us. So again, overall, I think it was pretty good. I still think we have to fix some things and tighten some things up, and hopefully turn some of those turnovers that we forced into chances. Just be a little bit better in transition, and we took some balls off them and then just didn't execute going forward. But again, overall, I thought it was pretty good.
Thanks, Chad. We'll go to Jason Anderson next. Jason, go ahead.
Hi, Chad. Thanks for speaking with us. It seemed like as the game wore on, you were able to get more wide overloads with the fullbacks coming forward, with the forwards coming wide. How much of a point of emphasis was that in attacking Chicago on the night?
I wouldn't say it was an emphasis per se going into the game, but obviously games, take on their own storylines and start to shape up a certain way. And as it started to happen, I thought we started to do a good job and get in dangerous positions. And create chances from those wider positions. But we've got to stick our chances. We had a couple clear looks that we need to put away, and sometimes those will completely change games. So, but again, like I thought the guys did a good job of figuring them out, a good balance in terms of when to go fast and when to keep the ball. But we gotta put chances away.
We'll go back to Thomas Floyd. Thomas, go ahead.
You mentioned those 2 goals in the first half. I wanted to just follow up on that. How tough was just the timing of those 2 goals right out of the gate and right before halftime?
Brutal. I mean, just absolutely brutal. You come into a game, you're fired up, and then you're in a hole immediately. So, I thought the guys did a really good job after giving up that goal to responding and not letting them get them down. And then right at the end of the half, where we just misjudged the flight of the ball, and now you're going into the locker room down 2 instead of down 1. And, those are just cardinal sins in our game. You have to start and end halves, and winning teams do that well, and teams that are struggling don't do it well. So we've already talked about just cleaning up the little things from tonight. And if we start to add those things into the positives that we basically moved forward with tonight in terms of the offensive stuff, then I think we'll start to have some success. But there's just no moral victories in this. You've got to find a way to get results.
Thanks, Chad. We'll go back to Jason Anderson. Jason.
Chad, you obviously made the changes up front with Rivas and Sorga. How do you think they did, and what went into the decision to bring them in for Ola Kamara?
Bring Ola in for them, you mean?
No, I mean in the starting lineup.
Oh,
yeah.
Just Ola's, seen a lot of minutes, so I thought it was good to get some fresh guys out there. I thought Rivas did a good job in terms of being strong up front, flicking some balls on. He had the one really good look on the header that I know he would love to have back and put that away. I thought the 2 of them both brought great energy to the group. Sorga, a lot of running, a lot of pressing that helped force a lot of those turnovers within the midfield, just in terms of taking time away from their fullbacks. But we've got 3 games this week, and you've got to kind of balance in terms of your rotation with the squad.
We'll go to Tried and True DC. Tried and True, go ahead.
Hey, thanks so much for the time tonight. Along the same lines, we saw Paredes and Yao on the bench tonight, and Nyman wasn't in the 18. Can you talk about how you see them fitting into your lineup moving forward?
Who was the first one you said?
Oh, it was just along the same lines we saw.
Other than Moses, did you say someone else?
Oh, I saw Kevin and Yao were on the bench. I'm sorry.
Gotcha. Yeah, similar sort of thing. Moses has a little knock. I think he'll be fine by Wednesday, and then again, just kind of squad rotation, trying to keep the crew fresh, and they're doing well. I think every time they step out there, they're picking up a wealth of knowledge, and we love what they're doing. But yeah, tonight's basically we started who we started, and we tried to bring them on late and see if we could get some energy from them, and that was kind of the plan.
We'll take one more question. We'll go to Jimena. Go ahead, Jimena.
Coach, how is your communication with the team? Or how are they responding to you?
I hope good. I feel like it's going well. It's been a tough few days for sure. There's been a lot going on, but I don't think I could ask any more of them. They laid it out there tonight. I'm so proud of the group. I'm so proud of how they reacted with regards to just everything that went on this week. And I thought we played really well, but I'm very pleased with how they've responded to me.
Chad, thanks. Appreciate your time.
Well, it's DC United's interim head coach Chad Ashton at the podium for the first time after a game, and wow, that was different. You get so used to hearing Benny after the games, and I don't know. Chad kind of recapped it similar to how we did. They played pretty well. It was just gutting to give up 2 set piece goals, 2 dumb bad set piece goals, right? And but overall, he rated the performance as pretty good, and. I don't know, guys. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. We talked a couple weeks ago. Birnbaum was out, and we let in a set piece goal, and we're like, oh, maybe that doesn't happen if you have our captain and our main center back in. And I think you could probably say that again tonight. Brilliant, again, is doing a great job for this team over the course of the season, especially as he's getting towards the later part of his career. But I feel like with Birnbaum on the field, maybe those 2 goals don't happen, and we're talking about a win.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless that we didn't see a goal in the run of play, right? This was a game where for the first time we saw our players pressing forward and having some more offensive creativity, and we didn't see those gaps in the defense as a result, which I think is really promising and something to really build off of going forward.
I loved seeing the positivity out of Chad too. Especially these last few weeks, it's been tough for this team, and you could tell there was a lot weighing on Ben. I do think that we'll get into discussion on the coaching change more later, but to have that kind of new optimism, that new hope for this is a new start for the team, really seemed positive. And going back to some of the discussion we were having on the lineup, you heard from the coach saying this is the guys I thought made sense today, and we're still going to rotate people through, but let's make no mistake, there is definitely a reason that it was all veterans starting out there. As we said, this is an opportunity for them to show that they deserve this spot. They need to be out there, and to have the lineup come together like that. It was definitely for a reason.
Oh, absolutely. I thought it was a pretty PC answer about the kids. Obviously, I was super curious about it. But yeah, I think it was a good answer of him saying we brought the kids on late to bring that creativity. I thought it was great that we didn't hear him say they don't have a place in the team, right? He said that it was kind of about just rotating players. I don't know that we're going to see as many starts that they had under Ben, which is probably understandable, but it was good to hear that they're still going to be a part of the picture, because I would hate for someone new to come in and just not play the kids.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And I mean, it's interesting, Michael, you said, that it was all veterans tonight, but there were 2 areas where it wasn't. One, obviously in the back line, I think the hand was kind of forced. It had to be done there. And I'll tell you, I don't think him or Brilliant had the best game of their career tonight. Donovan, tallest guy in the field, needed to make a play on the corner that they gave up just before halftime.
Yeah.
That's pretty inexcusable there. I mean, he's obviously still young and whatnot, but if he gets any piece of that ball, it's not a goal.
Well, and Assad lets the guy go in behind him.
True.
Assad lets him get behind, and we'll give Pines credit for almost creating an opportunity at the other end where he went up.
He had a few,
for
yeah.
a 50-50 ball. So, I would agree that it's not a shining performance for him, but I certainly don't put the loss entirely on his shoulders.
Oh, no, not at all. And I think the other non-veteran starter tonight was Sorga up top, which we've talked about for a while. I think giving Kamara a break and also giving Sorga and Rivas more time, they were fun to watch. And I mean, Ashton, man, this is going to be hard. I was almost going to say Olsen. Ashton alluded to, a lot of minutes that Olas played this season, which is true, and games coming up here. But I'm not going to lie. I think there was also a little bit of a message trying to be sent there too, if I had to guess.
I mean, anyone, I guess, except for Ben, saw that Ola needed at least. Maybe not for you're done for the rest of the season, but at least like, hey, you need to take a break, maybe refocused, and then try again.
And over these past few weeks, one of the small things that we've been looking at is saying, hey, this is a bright spot, is the fact that we were playing the kids. I don't think if you come in today and said, oh, well, look, we still lost, but at least we were playing the kids, that gets to be a cop-out at a certain point. So I do think it was good to see the guys get out there and have an opportunity. I was glad to see the guys come on late, because frankly, you do not want to have your entire team riding on the shoulders of 2 16, 17-year-olds. You would like, for the guys that you have in there to be demonstrating that they belong. So we'll see how it really pans out moving forward.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, I think I saw some glimpses of it, but hopefully they got some film on these guys and see what they can do, maybe in a different system where they're not defending as much as they were before. I thought there were some bright spots out there for Assad and Gressel and Rivas and players like that. Flores coming on, he looked really good. So hopefully they have some film and they can sit down and then maybe start to work out who's going to be on the roster next year using this.
Yeah, it was also news to me that Nyman had a little bit of knock. I guess I didn't notice that. I don't know if that happened in the game midweek or if that was something that got picked up in practice. But glad to hear that he's doing well and should be back, midweek this week. But fans reaching out here. Obviously, Brian saying that I know it was an own goal, but really felt like we were going to tie it up and get a point. Hopefully, we can keep the momentum up on Wednesday against Philly. And I mean, it's brutal to have to play Philly again right away, right? I mean, they're such a good team, but you talk about the way DC United played tonight. If they play like that again against Philly, I think it'll be, hopefully a dramatically different scoreline, if not a different result than the last time we saw them.
Yeah, I completely agree. We talked about it a little off air. And I made the point in podcasts previous of it's really hard to bring in a new coach when you have 3 days of practice and then you're heading into the next game, right? Especially as Black pointed out off air, you're not bringing in a new coach who's going to just continue what the old coach was doing, right? It's obviously something where we're looking for a little bit of a switch of mentality, and it's really hard to implement that in just a couple of days. So, hopefully, even though this was a loss, the team is going to be able to hold their heads up a little bit, especially there's been so much talk about the fragility of this team. So hopefully they're just able to move forward and on to the next and build upon what they started today with Philly.
And you saw that, you gave up a goal in the first 3 minutes, which for several years was a hallmark of a DC United team, and the team did not crumble. You didn't get the equalizer, or not even equalizer. You didn't get a goal back until the own goal in the second half, but you did look like a team that was there to play and wasn't just going to fold up, because you're right, a fragile team that had just changed coaches and has everybody fighting for their jobs, to give up a goal that early to a team that you feel like you should be competing with. It could have gone much worse. So that maybe isn't the hopeful note that we're looking for here, but there is a positive there.
Well, in a lot of ways, they look confident to me, which is something particularly in the attacking third we haven't seen. And we'll see what they can parlay that into some goals, into some wins. Here as we go down the stretch. But just the confidence and the time on the ball was fun to see.
Yeah, look, it's disappointing that this team continues to concede early, but they didn't give away 4 goals today. And I think, Black, are we ready for the next press conference?
Yep, it looks like we have Frederick Briant, so we'll cut over there now.
Pablo, go ahead, man.
Fred, thanks for chatting. I wonder if you could, just 2 things. First of all, tell us a little bit about what this week has been like for you and the team, and also just what you thought of the response tonight.
Yeah, obviously it was a strange week with a strange feeling, because Ben was in the club since a long time, and it gave us also confidence. The player we have in the team, we are there because he wanted us, So yeah, it was something strange, but like we said, it's the business, and we have to figure it out and think about the game was coming. So, and we work very well this week, and we were ready to play today. And I think we did a good game. Obviously, we lost the game, but if we look the game, I think we were much better.
Thanks, Fred. We'll go to Thomas Floyd next. Thomas.
Hey, thanks for taking the time. What did you think of the second half response once you got that goal and were able to start creating more scoring chances?
Yeah, it's tough because we conceded the goal very early during the game, set pieces again. And we had some opportunities. And like I said during the first half, guys, we have to keep the heads up and be positive for the time. And this is what we did. And in the end, I think we were pretty well. We had the ball, we had some chances, some opportunity to score, and we conceded the second goal. So only set pieces. We didn't concede so many. We didn't gave too many chances. I mean, and we had some opportunity to score. So yeah, overall, I think it was a good game for us, but it's not enough for sure.
Thanks, Fred. We'll go to Jason Anderson. Jason.
Hi, Fred. Thanks for speaking with us. Obviously, you were more focused this week as a team, or this game as a team, playing out of the back, trying to possess. Chad said that not only was that something that he wanted the team to start doing more, but he said that you as a group, the players, said that you wanted to play that style. How do you think you did as a group at that aspect of the game tonight?
Exactly. You know, as a player, it's better to get the ball than running behind the ball. So it was something we really wants to do. Not only build up from the back, but you know, keeping the ball, let the ball rolling, going one side to the other side, and be available for the teammate, and yeah, keep the ball. And I think more we keep the ball, more opportunities we have, and less we run behind the ball. So it's simple of that. And all players wanted to get the ball more often. You know, it was something we work hard. We work on. During the last week, and today, like I think you guys saw, we were much better. I don't know what's the number of the possession today, but I think we were not bad. No, guys, you have the number.
For what?
The possession, yeah.
51. You guys have more possession.
Yeah. That mean enough.
Thanks, Fred. We'll go to Mauricio next. Mauricio, go ahead.
Thank you, Fred, for your time. Coach says that the game was good, the players were good, but we're still missing the score. What we need to get the goals that make the team better, not just playing, but scoring? What is missing?
Obviously, we are a team who are sick. You know, we are in the bottom of the standing. Nothing is going well, so it's tough for everybody, and it's tough for the player up front. We need confidence. Now we have the ball. We had the ball today, so it's much better. We had more opportunities, so it was much better for them, because normally, you know, the game we played before, we didn't have too many times the ball, so for them was not easy at all. Today was much better, and we had opportunities. Now we have to play with confidence, especially for the player up front. You know, striker, they need confidence. But I think if we keep going like that, they're gonna score for sure. I think they are very good player. We believe of them, and it's coming. It's coming. We have to stay positive. We have to be behind them, and keep pushing forward, and stick together. You know, it's not only the player up front; it's all the team. If they don't have the ball to score, they can score. Today they had a little bit, but you know, it's confidence. It's coming. We have to stay positive. You guys, you know, the journalist has to be positive with them, and it will be better. It will be better.
Thanks, Fred. We'll go to Jimena next. Jimena.
Fred, what is the challenges when you change a coach during the season?
It's hard, but in the end, we didn't change too many things, you know, because Shad worked with Ben during 20 years, something like that. So I think the philosophy doesn't change too much. It's only some stuff, you know. So, and we work with Shad since I'm here. I work with Shad, so he knows the player. We know him, so it's not complicated, to be honest. And like we said, now, you know, sometimes we can say, okay, is the coach's fault, but now we don't have excuses. And if we want to do something, we have to see what we're gonna do, what we're gonna do well, what we're gonna do wrong, and be better, be the best version of yourself, like we said, you know, and keep going, working, and try to do the best for the club first, for the teammate, and for yourself.
Thanks, Fred. There's no more questions. Appreciate your time, man.
You're welcome, guys. Have a good night.
That's DC United's Frederick Briant, who wore the captain's armband tonight and took some questions from the media there, calling out that, hey, there's no excuses now. Now that the coach is gone, the players have to perform. And, like we said, it was very different tonight.
I liked it. No, I liked it. He was very positive. I like that he kind of fact-checked. He was like, no, we have more possession today. We played a lot, right? We have more possession, right? Like, he wanted to make sure that he was being kind of like backed up with the actual performance on the field, but it's good that we saw that, and then it felt on the field like they were playing a lot better and they were getting more into a groove. And I think, frankly, they're playing more to the players' strengths on this roster. We've talked a lot about how on paper this is a very good team. There's no reason for us to be as low as we are. And I think this is the start of us seeing those strengths enabled to come out on the field.
Yeah, and Fred touched on that too. When you don't have the ball ever and you're just defending all the time, you get really tired because you're always chasing the game. And he mentioned that, and I think we saw it, and we saw a bunch of half chances tonight. And hopefully as this grows and maybe throughout the final games of this season, we start to see some actual real chances going on.
Well, related to that, we have a question from Gene on YouTube here about, how long is it going to take DC United to get out of the quote grinded out mentality? And I got to tell you, there's a big part of me that thinks and hopes that it never goes away. And in a sense of like this team, it is a big part of the identity, and this team does need to be able to grind out results when we're finally back on top of games. So I hope in a lot of ways they don't lose it. But I don't know. I think you saw a lot of that tonight of like that's not 100% going to be the game plan going forward. Yeah. It's just going to take a little bit of time for them to get used to playing with possession again, right? And possessing in the final third, and then getting, confident taking and creating chances. But yeah, I think it's fairly obvious that that's going away. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's like grit Benny ball style, right? And I think that wasn't really working for the team, obviously, but then I think there's grit and there's just passion and working really hard. And, I haven't obviously been a fan since 96. But at least as long as I've been a fan, that's been the mentality of the team, right? It's a very hardworking, like gutted out team. We're not the like LAFCs, for example, who are trying to like play with style and play flashy, whatever. We're just going to go out there, do the work, and like really grit out a result. And I think that you can do that in a more productive way than we have done in the past. And I don't think that's something that this team is looking to turn away from anytime soon.
Yeah, if this first game is any indication, then that's going to be the grinded out as a tactic will be gone. The grinded out as a mentality and a love for the club
well put.
should stay around for a while. Look, I know, and I'm already seeing tweets and chats in our show that Chad Ashton is nothing new. This is going to be the same team. I don't know if you can really expect that. Look, we kind of broke it down in between the interviews. He did what he had to do tonight. Played the veterans. Played a 4-4-2. That's as basic and as solid as you can get. Yeah. For like Sam said, he had 3 practices. So let's. We had our pity party for a while. We have a new coaching situation. Let's give it some time to go in. I think the grinded out mentality will completely leave when we hire a coach, whether that's Chad and he can implement his style the way he wants, or someone new who implements their own character and impresses that on the team. That'll be winning.
And there's a big difference between having a team that has mental fortitude that can withstand things and a team that sits back in bunkers and hopes that something goes their way. I think you can interpret grinded out a number of different ways. I think we would always like to see a team that is mentally tough and really stays in it throughout and doesn't just count on having 11 guys sitting back behind the ball and calling it a gritty defensive performance. I do not want to see that part of the identity go away, because it's something you can't switch on just for one game or one circumstance. It's something you have to really have at all times when you're playing, and have that come out when you have those adverse circumstances. Now, you're going to have a lot more adverse circumstances if you are sitting back and letting people shoot on you all day without going forward. So that's a change there.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think it's a little bit unfair to say that Chad Ashton is a lot of the same, because he's not. If you don't follow us on Twitter, I'd recommend it, because we tweet out the pregame press conference, just quotes and highlights, and he came in and he was very respectful. He said Ben Olsen's a personal friend. He's done so much for this club. Like, I don't think anyone can deny that. But almost in the same breath, he was like, but things are changing around here, and we're becoming more offensive. That's what everyone wants to see, and we're changing tactics, and we're kind of flipping the grit, as we've all been talking about, and we're just going to change the way that DC United plays. And we've said it's not surprising we didn't see that tonight because there just hasn't been time. But I think that it's unfair of the fans to not give him a little bit of chance. I understand that everyone is so frustrated with this season and everyone has a right to be, absolutely. But I think we need to afford him a little bit of grace to just kind of see what he can do. And then, afford whoever the new coach is the same amount of grace. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see a permanent hiring until off season. I'm sure the team wants to explore a multitude of possibilities. If that does end up being Chad, if it ends up being someone else, the game plan is probably just going to drastically change. And I think that we can all be excited for that. But in the meantime, I think that we can expect different things from Chad because he's come out and said that that's what he's going to bring for us.
Yeah, and before we get into all the details of the coaching change, we want to do it a little earlier this week. We'll shout out our friends at Across the Pond. They had a cool promo going on tonight. Unfortunately, DC United couldn't quite get it done, but please give them some love. They've got great food. They show all the games, soccer, American football, pretty much anything you want. They'll put it on. And if you use the promo code podcast, you'll get 5% off your purchase. But for the remainder of the show, I think there's obviously something big, Joshua, you alluded to at the beginning of the show, and of course we've talked around it all night. Ben Olsen's out as head coach of DC United. He's been in the role for what feels like ever, and he's certainly been a part of the team forever. And so, I mean, really, where do we go from here, right? I mean, tonight's game was indicative of what this roster can do with the change in tactics, but as much as it's great to hear from Chad and it's really kind of refreshing to hear him talk to the media there. Where do you go? Where does this team go next in terms of, do they promote from within, or do they try to make a sexy coaching hire? What do you do?
Oh man. Look, obviously the sexy coaching hire would get the fan base into it. We'd all be hyped for that, but it doesn't always work out, right? Frank DeBoer was a big hire for Atlanta.
A sexy hire, one would say.
I mean, those were John's words.
I don't know if you can call DeBoer sexy in any sense of the word, but
I'm teasing.
And look, sometimes we
worry where this is going to go.
Who's the coach for LA Galaxy right now? Big name from South America.
GPS.
Yeah, it's been a complete flop. They're almost as bad as us, and they spend the money. So I don't know. I want the big hire because it'd be fun. It'd be exciting. I'd love to see some masterclass tactics from DC United, but I don't know. Hopefully it's thoroughly vetted. That's all.
I mean, the way the market works out, you're not going to spend all of the transfer budget getting a huge name. It's not necessarily going to impact your spending, but it's going to be hard to be an attractive target. And we've talked about this a little bit in the past as far as, will you not keep Ben? If you don't put the resources behind a coach to do what he wants to do and accomplish his vision, it doesn't matter how big the name is, you're still going to have similar results.
Okay. I think that's a big factor because I think even coaches look at that before they take jobs. They look at the amount of resources they're going to have, the players that they'll be able to get, and what they have to work with currently. And DC United is going to have a job to sell this club to a team because they're looking at the bottom. They're at the bottom of the table. Anyone can pull that up on the internet and look at that. I don't know if you can pull up on the internet and see the potential that the squad has, and that might hurt DC United.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways it's like, you see the teams at the bottom of the table, and those are generally the teams that are looking for a new coach, unless the coach, went to bigger, better place, right? And now there's a vacancy, higher up in the table. But you hit on a good point of like, there's teams like the Galaxy that spend a bunch of money and they're at the bottom of the table because chemistry didn't work, or they just bought a player who wasn't that good, or they had injuries or whatever. But you have to look at the whole picture with DC United of, are you, like you said, are you going to get the full investment that you want? Are you going to get 3 DPs? I mean, those are the types of questions I would be asking if I was getting interviewed. And I'd also, understanding the totality of the situation, coaches have to understand how many injuries this team's had this year, and like, regardless of the results, they haven't had the full potential of the roster. And even, when a lot of these guys were healthy, I think we've seen that maybe the tactics weren't set up to show the full potential of the roster. So there's a lot of things at stake, and obviously the local market here, DC United's not where they should be on that front either. And I think folks that are familiar with the league are going to know that. And is that an opportunity, or is that, a liability?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a little bit too early to even like have this conversation. I mean, it's fun to speculate and talk about what we'd want to see for the team, but
Poach and Ozil are coming together.
No, I think it really is going to depend on what Levian wants to do, right? And how much he wants to spend.
Yeah.
And are we shifting to a Philly model of really like growing our youth program and relying on that? Or are we going to kind of shift to signing some really big name players and kind of going off that? I think that there are a multitude of ways that DC United could go. And I'm sure that all these conversations are happening behind the scenes. We're just not privy to them quite yet. Personally, I mean, as much as I like love Chad, and I literally just said to like give him an opportunity, and I think we're going to see something different from him. I would also really like to see the team just kind of hire outside, and hopefully that means a lot of the current coaching staff doesn't lose their roles. But I would just love to see something very fresh and very different for DC United. This is a team that is very laden in its history, and I'm not saying that I want that to go away. I'm also just saying that like there's a future to look forward to, and I'd love to see us like start to progress and move into what MLS is becoming.
Yeah, and it's interesting you point out what MLS is becoming, because MLS is a strange league when you talk about the international soccer scene.
Yeah.
It takes managers a little bit of time to come in and really understand how this league works and understand that you're not able to just splash the cash that you want on every position. You're going to have to make do in some spaces because of the strange roster rules we have. You travel a lot. You have, a strange schedule you've got to work out. There's a lot of challenges there. I don't think we have specific names that we're clamoring for, but we do have to understand that whoever we bring in, even if it is a splashy name, is going to take time to figure out how this is working. Because I don't think there is a MLS coach there or a former MLS coach who is ready to step in and fill this spot, unless there's a name that comes to y'all's mind.
And that's why I was saying I think we're gonna see it in the off season, right? I mean, it's very unfair to like judge Chad by what he's doing right now. I think any coach who comes in is going to want the full amount of time. I'm sure those conversations are going to happen right now, and maybe DC United will kind of have a decision and like a top candidate before off season. I would hope that's the case, but I don't think we're going to see like the actual hiring until off season, because then they have like a good chunk of time to get to work.
And please, when they make that move, I would like it to be sooner rather than later, so we can stop speculating and start thinking about the future there.
Right.
But you definitely want a coach in so that you know how they want to play. So as you're filling out your roster, you can build around that.
Oh, absolutely.
It's such a challenge to say, hey, we're going to bring in a guy and then have him maybe not fit the system. And then you're dealing with that for a long time. It's a challenge, but...
Yeah, and I mean, a couple of things you guys kind of stirred up there that I want to hit on. One is DC United haven't done this in forever,
a decade,
right? I mean, like they don't know how to hire a coach, and that's
they still
not
know how.
Well, and the last coach they hired was literally the guy who was on the sideline who had just stopped playing for you.
Yeah, exactly. So like, when's the last time they like had a committee to find a coach, right? I mean, you got to turn way back on
I will
that.
say that there have been leaks and rumors that DC United has had committees before now. They have looked at other coaching candidates before now.
Sure.
Looking at you, Pablo Mara kind of leaked that we had been looking at Bruce Arena for a little bit a couple years ago. So they, I wouldn't say they don't know how.
I mean, but yes, I remember the conversation you're talking about with the Bruce Arena leaks, but like, really, you run in a committee to recommend we hire a former coach?
I mean, I agree.
That's not.
I don't think that was the move either.
But Levian runs or is on the board over at Swansea.
Sure.
So he could probably copy someone's notes and figure out that process. Not that Swansea are super successful or anything, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting process. I can't wait to watch. I don't know.
It's going to be very different internally. I think everyone knows how, but just the fact that they're doing it, I think some coaches or some teams go through coaches so quickly. I don't know. Has it been announced what his role within the team is?
It seems like they're still working on what exactly it'll be.
Which I think we can all appreciate. A lot of what I saw on Twitter, which made me really happy about this fan base, is that a lot of it was like, yes, this is time. I had been calling for this, but I also very much appreciate what Ben brought to the team. I appreciate that the team has also recognized that and are keeping him in the family.
I hope he just locked himself in his paint studio and just like went to town, had a relaxing week. And,
yeah.
He definitely deserves that. One of the things we're seeing here in the YouTube chat is, why have multiple coaches been fired, but Chad stays? It's time for a whole new coaching staff. Chad needs to go. First of all, I look, somebody's got to coach the team, right? So I mean, had they come in midweek and fired everyone, who exactly do you think would have been coaching tonight? They also traded the player coach to Miami, so
no, he's not a player coach. He made it very clear.
Just a player. So while I can agree with you in some sense that, like, yes, we need to ultimately kind of clear the deck and bring in a new staff, you do that at the end of the season, right?
I don't think any of us are calling for Chad to get this job full time. I guess if he were to win every game from here on out by a comfortable margin, then he could make a case. But other than that,
maybe not even win. But if I saw I mean, tonight wasn't like I said earlier. This was just veterans and a 4-4-2. This is just like. See what we got.
It was what he needed to do, though.
Right,
and like we haven't maybe seen that in a minute, right?
If he actually wants to audition for this job, though, we got to see a little bit more than what he needs to do.
I think he needs more than 3 days, though. Like we're having this conversation.
He's got time to do it. And I think what's interesting is I could see a guy like Chad staying on a new staff. Somebody new comes in and you say, look, you want to hire somebody who's been around, knows the players, is with the players. You put them in a role, and you build the rest of the staff around them. So.
Think it would be a different conversation if we were like in the playoff push and like right on the line, or maybe we were like pushing for like, I don't know even what home games would look like this time, but if we were pushing for some sort of incentive around the playoffs, I would understand maybe there being a little bit more urgency in this coaching hiring. But I mean, I hope that we make the playoffs, and I'm going to say that we were going to make the playoffs until we were mathematically not going to, but I also think it's unrealistic.
We're 7 points back with 7 games.
Okay, listen, we're not mathematically out. I'm going to say all day long, DC United still has that chance, right? But I think realistically, you can't expect the front office to make a drastic coaching hiring when there's nothing to really play for. Like, there's nothing wrong with having Chad see out the end of the season and really taking your time on making that coaching decision. And again, I understand that the fan base is like very anxious to like really win some games and come back out on top. We're a team that can absolutely do it, but I think that we do have to. I'd rather be patient right now and make the right decision in the end than rush into something that's going to give us maybe a couple wins right now but not be the best in the long term.
Well, we got good news for you, Sam. 538, according to what Joshua's pulled up here, still says we have less than a 1% chance.
That's more
playoffs,
than
so,
zero.
That is
We're going
true.
to make it, y'all.
The other important thing I wanted to hit on, Michael, you brought it up. MLS is a very different league. There's no doubt. And I just, when you said that, you referenced some of the European coaches. I mean, could you imagine Jose Mourinho coming to MLS someday and like sitting in the first meeting like with the front office?
You want to talk about a bleak style.
True. But like we're gonna acquire this guy. We're gonna use some GAM and like we might be able to buy him down his salary a little bit with some TAM and like. What do you think some of these coaches like? Do they like? Well, maybe. You got to believe some of these coaches are like, do I have an opt-out clause?
They feel like they're Ted Lasso coming into a system and being like, hold on. I can sign a guy, but I can't sign the guy, but I can use imaginary money, but it has to go with this other imaginary money, but I can't spend more than X amount of
what
money.
A phenomenal comparison. That's great. Yes, that's probably how they would feel.
Yeah, it's wow. Mark says here on YouTube that the front office needs to make the new coaching hire before Christmas. 8 players have contracts expiring at the end of the year, and that's a good point.
That's very fair. Yeah.
I think. Well, let's see. When is the actual last game on the schedule here? Is it
November 8th ish?
Yeah. So in theory, they've got a good amount of runway to do that, and you probably would want to have someone in place by then to start making transactions and preparing for the preseason.
I could see them starting the conversations and starting the interview process now, just because they don't announce that till the end of the season. Like I think people sometimes get blindsided and forget that there are things happening behind the scenes that we're not privy to yet, right? Like they're not going to release the list of interview names and like the list of their top candidates. I think we just have to be a little bit patient, but I would hope that they would do that forward thinking right now.
It would be cool if they did like a portion of the interview was a press conference, and then the media got to just
that'd be very interesting.
Grill the person, right? I mean, why not?
Yeah,
amazingly entertaining and terrible from a hiring practice.
Oh yeah, no, it'd be awful.
Every coach would drop out, but from a fan perspective, that'd be pretty cool.
You have to assume that the job is like super coveted or something. Like if like Real Madrid did that at some point. Everybody wants the job, regardless of how the interview goes. I don't know if DC United have as much leeway in terms of.
I'd be interested, Mark, if you know the names of those 8 players. I'm trying to think of the players that I absolutely want to stay for another year. or two.
Oh, go.
Well, Ariel just signed a new deal,
John just saw an
so he's
opportunity.
good. Gressel just signed a new deal. He's good. Assad we just picked him up for free agency, so he's good. Bills.
Wait, are you
here for
naming
a while.
players you want to stay or
Those are
players
the players
that, will
that I
stay?
know have a contract? Look,
Okay, yeah, no, I'm interested in who you want to stay.
I'm fine if the 8 players haven't signed a contract leave. We probably could use a good reset here.
Also, though, like
yeah.
this is not. I feel like a league where you can just like swipe your roster and start anew, right?
Well, and
this
that's
is a
tough too, right?
multi-year process. We're not just going to sign
it kind of is though, 'cause
18 new players.
We have the salary cap.
You know, between 2013 and 2014, it felt like the team basically turned over entirely. And
A lot of things have changed since then. I also think that knowing this team and their their financial willingness to spend, nothing within our recent history makes me think.
You guys talk about all the money they're throwing around with these training facilities,
Well,
stadiums.
so hold on.
Rooney.
Yeah, that's where the money is going. It's not going towards players.
But also,
Those
you know,
checks cleared.
when you talk about, you know, with the salary cap that makes it possible, yes, but it also drastically lowers kind of the pool of players that you can bring in too. Like you're going to be bringing in some MLS retreads with that, or you're going to be bringing in some, you know, which in many ways is a good thing, but you might be bringing in some young, you know, unproven players, and then of course, obviously international slots are always a fun time.
Yeah,
They're easy to come by apparently, but
I think I would like to see us take advantage of the free trade, because that is drastically changed, right? They just like lowered the age for the free trade.
MLS free agency.
Free agency, yes, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to see us take advantage of that because I think that we could definitely, again, is hopefully, fingers crossed, that we have a head coach right now that we've kind of, or at the time that when these conversations are happening, that we've zeroed in on, who can have a say in which players we're bringing on. But I'd like to see us take advantage of the players who know the league, who kind of know how to win and take advantage and just play successfully, and then having a couple like big name John Sexy signings, and just starting to build from there. And I think it wouldn't be surprising if this were a multi-year commitment. I mean, hopefully next year, I'm assuming like we make the playoffs, we make a push. Maybe we're not really making that like push for the Supporter Shield and the Cup, but we're at least like turning in the right direction. But I would like to see someone think more long term.
And you're right that, you know, this is a league that has changed even over the last 5 years. You've had several waves of expansion, and you're continuing to expand new teams, although I think most of the expansion for next year has been put on hold pending COVID, etc.
They all got pushed back a year, I think, right?
I think we have to deal with Austin next year.
Yeah, Austin is
Okay.
still good.
But you've got a lot of challenges there as far as trying to find some of these players with MLS experience, because there's just more slots for them to end up in. You know,
Yeah.
It's not quite as easy to go out there and say, hey, you know, you want to play here in the United States at the top level, you know, we've got a spot. We can make it happen. You have to stretch a little bit more. I would love to see them take advantage of some of the new rules when it comes to young DPs. You know, take a risk on a guy who isn't going to hit your salary cap quite as hard, but you know, the payoff on the back end could be huge if you make it happen.
Yeah. No, listen, the league as a whole is positioning itself to being a selling league, and there's literally no secret about that. So I would love to see more commitment into our youth programs. I think that we've made that great start with Loudon, right? That's a step in the right direction. But teams like Philly and New Jersey really have that down, and I'd like to see us capitalize on that, because there's so much talent in Northern Virginia. There's so much soccer talent here. So I think to long-term be successful, we can grow on that talent and then sell those players on, and then we can afford the big name signings. We have the youth players who can also play, or we're not just relying on these kind of 17-year-olds. They're kind of fitting in with the squad, but they actually have, not that these three don't, obviously they're on the bench for a reason, but we have players who are younger, who are consistently starting and making a change for this team and really putting it out there.
We're live here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. And while you're listening, take a moment to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you haven't yet. Smash it, in the words of Joshua Morgan, and give us some love. Tell a friend about the show. We want to hear who you would like to see DC United sign as head coach.
Hire?
Come to an agreement, hire as the next head coach. So let us know using the hashtag Tried and True DCU, or of course calling us at 202-892-6328. That's 202-892-6328. We'll open up the phone lines, and of course Sam's got an eye on the chat in Twitter as well. So
You got the YouTube chat as well.
Yeah.
You guys are keeping an eye on.
There's a few names that have been thrown around this week. I mean, I think
we're getting there.
Yeah, well, I think Joshua, you've talked a bit about John Harkes potentially as a guy who could come in, ties to the club, obviously. we saw Stephen Goff a bit surprisingly throw out Jill Ellis as a name of someone who DC United could bring in this week.
It's been thrown out a lot.
Yeah, and so I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on at least those two names as I hate to say leading the way, but perhaps most talked about to date?
Rumor mill
in the
leading the
public
way.
forum,
I'm gonna let you talk about John Hart's first because you've been chatting about this.
John
for a
Hart's
while.
one is my favorite one to talk about because no one is getting paid to write about him taking the job. Unlike, I know respect to Goff, but he literally gets paid to write articles that people read, and you put Jill Ellis is going to be the coach of DC United, people will click on that. John Hart's is a solid person. He's in the playoffs right now. He's the legend, just like Ben is. But now he actually has some coaching experience, so unlike Ben, he won't be learning on the job, and he's done quite well down there in Greenville. He's got a couple former DC United players. Klaus is down there with him. So yeah, and they're a really fun side. I don't know if you can go straight from USL League One to MLS, but like I said, Ben went from the bench to the sideline. So it'd be better than that, I guess. I'm not completely sold on it, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, we joke a lot, in the DC United fan circle, and a lot of folks, who've listened to the show, I'm sure too as well, about like what sort of ambition is this team going to show? And to me, I mean, look, this team has to do so much more to honor its tradition. We've talked about doing that in the stadium and making it more part of the culture, and there's a lot of things they have to do. But to me, one of those things that they don't have to do is go out and hire someone who's been a member of this team before. And I'm a bit frustrated at the thought that John Harkes might be leading the way here, and I don't know that he is, right? But it's just kind of like boring to me, right? Like bring in someone who's got experience, one, because Olsen certainly didn't when he got the job, right? So I think that's one change I would make is bring in somebody with some experience and spend some money on someone with some upside. I mean, to me, that's just I guess that's not fair. Harkes obviously has an upside, but I don't know. I want to see a little more ambition. I want to see somebody go out there, get somebody who's either a proven winner or
So what name would you rather?
It's just kind of meh to me. I don't know.
So what name would you rather see? So what name would you rather see?
No, I understand it, but yeah,
I'll answer that, Sam.
Or what type of person?
No, I can answer both, but am I the only one that feels that way? I mean, what are your thoughts on Harkes? I mean, is it? I don't know. It just seems kind of meh to me.
I understand both sides of the argument. I think I just called for someone who was like brand new, right? And I think that Harkes can provide that. Obviously, he's been with the team, but he's stepped away. He's gotten different experience. I think we could see him. I think that he shouldn't be the leading candidate just because he used to play for DC United and he was the captain of the U.S. men's national team 20 years ago, right? Like, I think that he...
For life.
I think that he would be. I think that he should absolutely be in the conversation. And if he, because of his talents as a coach and his vision for this team, rises to the top, I will embrace him and root for him 100%. But I think that I would like to see a very diverse and qualified applicant list aside from Harkes.
Yeah, and hitting on that, someone mentioned Eddie Pope in the chat, which would be. I know you guys, and I had to refute it. I love the idea. I love the representation that he would bring, but I think he's more on the agent side now. I think he works in the same agency that Pines is part of. But yeah, I think you're right. There needs to be, look, DC is a huge market, I think, and there's all kinds of people who are a super diverse city, so the coaching staff should reflect that. And we talked about it a little bit before the show went on about that should be represented. I don't know if there's candidates out there that meet that criteria, and certainly shouldn't be the only criteria, but I don't know.
I mean, right now, you've let Ben go in the middle of October. As we said, you should probably have something in place by the end of December. That's more than 2 months. That's plenty of time to talk to everybody under the sun. You should absolutely talk to John Harkes. He's
Jill Ellis.
He's a guy who's
talked to him.
Yeah, John Harkes is eminently gettable, and we can talk about Jill Ellis. I don't think there is a chance that she would take this job.
Two separate conversations.
But that's beside the point. I think John Harkes would be eminently gettable, and if after going through a fulsome process, they've established that, hey, this is the guy who has what we need to move us forward, and he's somebody who's willing to come in and do the job. That's great. It's a job interview going both ways.
And then do we get Ian back? I mean,
totally agree. Yeah, no, I just want to point out there, I totally agree. And to me, like right now, midst of speculation, the Harkes name doesn't get me too excited. But you're right. If they go out and interview a bunch of people and they decide, no, this is the guy, he's got the vision, this is the guy we want to get behind, rock on. That's
and
the right
then
move.
give him like a year or two, maybe 3 to figure it out,
or 10,
not a whole decade.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm thinking like a year or two, not 3.
I think it depends
Let's
on
go.
what the vision is. I think if it's like, because I think this whole brand really needs
took
to go
Minnesota
through a
3 years.
rebuilding. Yeah, I think that you need to allow the time and space to figure out where this team is going in the future, because this whole entire season, and it feels like for several years, it's been just looking at the next game, just looking at making the playoffs this year and just figuring it out the next game and grinding out that result. And I think that we need a longer term vision, which is a little bit where like when you invest in a youth program, like that is inherently what you're doing. But I think that whoever comes in, depending on what their vision and mentality is, deserves a longer stretch of time. I think that if they come in and they're like, no, I'm going to change the players that we have right now, you're going to give me a couple sexy signings and we're going to figure it out next season, and like the rest of the front office is figuring out that long-term goal, then maybe, it only works for a year and then that coach doesn't fit in anymore and you look for a new coach. But I really think, and this is where I mentioned earlier, it's like a little bit premature because we don't really know what the front office is even looking for right now or what they're willing to invest in.
Yeah, I think we're mostly on the same page, Sam. I think the only difference is, I mean, and Joshua, you used Minnesota as an example. They came up as a USL team, right? So like we're not that far gone, right? Like
No.
we've got infrastructure in place. We've got a youth program. We've got a pretty good youth program. We just removed kind of the final barrier to entry, thank God. We've got Loudon. So like I think most importantly, it's tying a lot of these pieces together that are already out there. I think that's what kind of struck me when you said 3 years of like I don't know how much of this fan base can do that. I mean,
that's a very fair point.
I think 1 to 2 years of getting on track and starting to make visible progress is fine. But if we're talking, to me, 2 seasons that are kind of dead, and year 3 we start to catch.
So personally, in like 4 to 5 years, like we should be MLS Cup contenders. There's literally no reason for that not to happen.
Yeah, that was my question for you, John. Is you're saying you need to be making visible progress. Ben made the playoffs 5 of the last 6 years. What is our bar at that point? I think we could certainly say, a team that's playing entertaining soccer, a team that's making the playoffs, and you feel like has a chance to go forward in that. But do we have other specifics that we're looking for?
I also think just like within the DC market, there's so many sports teams here, right? And there's like such, I don't know, just this mentality that like no one's from DC and no one's a DC sports fan. And like to really grasp the attention of this city, especially with the recent winnings from the Caps and from the Nats, like we need to be a team that's in the talks for winning the whole league, either in the Supporters Shield or the MLS Cup, pretty frequently to expand the fan base in the way that DC United had hopes of doing with Audi Field.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joshua.
You make a good point. The Caps just won the Cup, and the Nats just won the series. So it makes it hard. I want to go back. I'm not completely sold on Harks. I understand that the sexy hire is appealing right now. We do need something different,
and I think that helps with fans and getting market attention.
Well, absolutely.
Too, right?
But I just look at where Red Bull just hired Barnley's coach. They paid the release clause on his contract. Mm-hmm. Barnsley are a championship side this year, I think.
That's right. I think.
So if that's the level that we're comparing, do we want to bring in a championship level coach? Is that
so? I saw on Twitter this week, and I wish I could cite who threw it out there, but Sam, you asked who I'd like to see. This actually struck a chord with me. I'd love to see a Nigel Pearson or something similar to that for a lot of reasons.
And where does he coach? Let's inform.
Currently unemployed.
Oh, okay.
Was
coach?
fired
I'm
from.
Clearly uninformed.
Yeah, he was fired from Watford this year.
Thank you.
He's obviously spent some time with Leicester City and a number of other teams throughout England. But what's intriguing to me about Pearson or someone of his type, right, is I don't think it's certainly not going to be the that Olsen was office, right? I mean, Pearson will come in. He's a player's coach, but he also calls it like it is so much. And so if they if they don't play well, he's going to call out players. If he's not getting what he needs to succeed from the front office, he's going to let the media know. He's the kind of guy that could come in, but he's also got that like I said, he's a player's coach, and he's almost got like a bit of a grit about him as well that that would be pretty fitting for a team like this. I don't know if a guy like him would want to come over to MLS at all or for the DC United job, but I think to me, you want someone that's got a bit of a name. You probably need a player's coach, but you also need someone who's gonna, like, let's be honest, and if part of the problem is with the GM and with the front office, like, you probably want a coach who's going to come in here and make that known. The challenge is the coach like that going to get hired?
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting point, and I think it all comes down to what the front office is able to pitch, right? Because I mean, Paul Arriola just signed on to a new contract, granted while injured, but he's a U.S. men's national team starter, and he could probably have his pick of at least a couple other teams who'd be willing to have him on their roster. I think this front office is, like, so good at pitching to people, right? Like, we got Gressel. There were a lot of other teams in MLS who were trying to get Gressel, and we got him to come to D.C. And so I think it'll be interesting just, like, what that pitch is. We might not ever know specifically what that pitch is, but I think that they potentially, given the track record, will be able to make that pitch. Whether or not that follow through happens, depending on when the coach gets here and what they actually ask for, I think will be dependent upon, like, how long we see that coach here. But I mean, maybe we do get some from England, right? Like, who knows?
Yeah, Bashir in the comments is asking, what kind of tactical acumen or what kind of tactical things are we expecting out of a coach? I think for me, it's twofold. I'd like to see a coach that knows how he wants to play and wants to play an entertaining style, something that gets fans excited, gets the players excited to be doing it, but somebody who is not so rigid that they have to play the same way every time. They're, like we said, MLS is a strange league. You've got to be able to adapt, game in, game out to different situations. You're going to have challenges as far as who's available, who you're playing against. You don't necessarily have to be locked into saying this is the only way that we have to play. You're not a club like an Ajax or another club that has a locked in formation. You're always going to play that exact same way.
I think that's such a good point, and I mean I just made the point, right, that you need to capture the attention of the DC as a city. I also think that, like, there's a very specific soccer intelligent fan base in DC, and they're not all DC United fans, but I think that there are a lot of people who really know soccer, and they could really get behind someone who has tactical know-how, who's willing to switch it up, and who's really willing to make it a very interesting game of soccer for you to watch week in and week out. And I think that that's an opportunity for the team to go out there and hire someone who can bring in a larger fan base. I think that's what, like, the Wayne Rooney signing was supposed to be, and he was for a little bit. We just didn't see that come to fruition long term, a little bit probably because of the pandemic, right? But I think that this is absolutely an opportunity for the team to either, like, hire a big name and bring people in that way, or just hire someone who, like, plays very interesting soccer and potentially more slowly, but just bring in fans who want to watch that tactical mastermind on the field.
So is that Jill Ellis?
All right.
I mean, we've dodged the topic quite a bit, so
I think no, right? I'm, like, a huge women's national team fan. I really supported Jill Ellis perhaps more than a lot of people have. I just don't think that she's a right fit for this team. I think there are two separate conversations. Like, I don't see her seeing the advantage of taking the job, right? Like, I don't think that the way that DC United plays right now and the mentality that the team has is her coaching mentality. And I don't know that the team would be willing to completely flip themselves for her mentality, which is not necessarily wrong of the team to not want to do, but I don't see her finding this a very appealing job right now. Just because I don't think she'd be long-term successful, again, with the team as it is right now. With DC United specifically, not necessarily just with MLS. On the flip side, I just don't see the team kind of going for her. I see them really going for someone who wants to really grit the games out a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be fine if they make the phone call and
absolutely, call her. Why not?
Let's do an interview. I think there's a big difference between being a national team coach, regardless of gender, where you can call in whoever you want to, get them in for short camps and go out and play national team games. particularly when you're in a situation like Jill Ellis was, playing with the best player pool and the best team in the world, you're not going to get that same level of support from DC United. I wish you could.
And even Berhalter has said that, right? And there have been a couple English coaches who have come out and been like very successful with their club teams, but they come out on the national team, and it's almost like a completely different mentality. You're not with these players every single day. You don't get to know them on that personal level. You're not doing tactics with them every single day. You've got like 2 weeks to figure it out, and then you're pushing these guys out onto the field, and it's just a very different skill set that you're working with as a club coach versus a national team coach.
Yeah, and I kind of teased Ben for it earlier, but Jill Ellis has never coached a club team. She went straight from college, was very successful there, went through the U.S. youth national teams, and then coached them in the World Cup. Yeah. I don't think that's what this team needs right now. And Black mentioned it earlier. I don't think it makes sense for her. Why would she ever attempt to tarnish that? If things go badly, she went out on a very high note. I'd leave it there.
And she's personally not set up for success at DC United, which is like not DC United's job to set her up for success. But again, just for her, like, why would you're right? Why would she try?
If they have that conversation and she says, "Hey, I want to take on this challenge. I want to, be that barrier breaker," by all means, go through the interview process, see if it makes sense and makes fit. I don't think we should be pinning all our hopes on saying that this woman who was amazingly successful with the U.S. women's national team is going to come in and fix the problems that are at DC.
Yeah, and I a little bit wonder where this has started, because I have seen a lot of people talking about this. Was it just a golf article speculating?
I think we saw some of it beforehand, but
no, it's definitely before this week. If people
she's a good coach who's unemployed, so I think at some point it's just speculation.
Yeah, let us know if she's been specifically linked in the comments or tweeted us in the middle of the week. I feel like most of what I've seen has just been speculation of people saying like, well, this person said it. Well, this person said it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe she'll open a coffee shop at Audi Field and we'll go down that path again. But
Brian Greenberg asks here in the comments, would you rather an American, a European, or a South American coach? I mean, look, I want the best coach for the job. I think we all do. If it comes down to, we're kind of tied between, a couple candidates, right? And it's like, does where they come from. South American's appealing to me with what this team has done with the players they're bringing in. They continue to have, good success bringing folks from South America. They don't always hit, but I think also having a primarily Spanish speaking coach would do wonders as well.
I think you could have a lot of success with getting a South American coach. The most recent example that stands out to my mind is Tata Martino in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. He had players coming to play for a brand new expansion club because of his name. And if you're talking about getting a splash figure, I can't think of a guy offhand who I'd say would have the same kind of pull as a guy who coached the Argentinian national team. Yeah. But you can have that kind of pull. Now,
that was a sexy hire for the record.
Yes. Now, but if you're going to
former Barcelona coach, yes, that is.
But if you're going to say, hey, we got this guy who happens to be from South America, and that's going to fix all our problems and make sure that we're be able to recruit from South America, that's not quite the same. But I agree with you. I do think it would be interesting to see a guy who has some Spanish fluency, is able to connect with players on that level, and again, go through the process. I don't have a strong preference on where they come from.
For me, it doesn't really matter. We've seen coaches from all those places be successful. I mean, Tobin Heath has been in America for a while, but he's from England, and Caleb Porter's American.
Wait, who?
Adrian
Heath. Sorry.
Oh, you said Tobin.
Tobin has been very successful, but
Tobin
say scandalous if she's not American.
And South American coaches are doing well here. So I don't think our success isn't determined by that, but it is an interesting dynamic depending on which way the team goes.
In a lot of ways, I think what you guys are breaking down is kind of the most important part of this team's got much bigger things to address than just the head coach position, right? And so you bring in the most successful head coach in the world, but if there's challenges in the front office, or if they're not tying the whole big picture together, or they're not relevant in the market, it doesn't matter. It's got to be part of a bigger picture type movement.
Can I ask how did you guys feel about Casper staying? Or is that too much right now?
No, I don't think it's too much. I think he should be. If you're bringing in a new head coach, I think his job's got to be up as well. Like if you're bringing in somebody new, I would almost be asking head coaching candidates like, what are your thoughts on do you want to keep Casper? Do you have somebody else in mind? Should we go new? Like, because to me, I think him and Olsen are just so tied together. But again, it's so hard because all we know is what we've read in the media and what we've heard and what we've talked about and kind of assumed. But I don't know how much of this was Olsen had a say in the players that are brought in, or how much of it was, Casper's given Olsen talent or lack thereof in some cases, and Olsen's expected to win games, right? So without fully understanding the relationship that they have, it's hard for me to say. But what I would like to see is the new coach comes in and it's very clearly defined from day one, right? And if they want more responsibility, almost like a Bruce Arena type thing, then that should be on the table, at least to be discussed. And if the team says no, we're not going to do that, then if Casper's the guy, then okay. But I guess there's a part of me with Casper that's like, man, he's found some diamonds in the rough, but is that what we're going to keep doing for the next 10 years? Because that's got to be part of the game, but that can't be the whole game.
That's well put.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right that it has to be part of the discussion. If you're talking about a splashy hire who is going to want more control over it, then you perhaps need to resolve that issue moving forward. I'm not surprised that they did not move on from Casper at the same time they moved on from Olsen. I think part of the decision to move on from Ben with games left of the season is that there's still something salvageable. Yeah. Marginally, according to the stats we've looked at so far, but you're not going to get the same kind of response from the folks on the field from firing your GM. So it would not surprise me to see Casper leave at the end of the season. I think there does have to be a discussion on how those two are going to fit together moving forward. I don't necessarily want to see a coach who is also playing the GM role. I think you can get some positive results out of having multiple guys focusing on what they do best, but it definitely has to be an evaluation after the season, because he's been a great asset for us over these last years that he's been here, finding those diamonds in the rough. But you phrased it exactly right. Is that what we're going to have to depend on moving forward? If it is, I think we're going to continue to get what we've got.
Joshua, what do you think? You posed a question.
No, I respect everything that Ben and Casper and even Chad have done throughout the years. I think it was time for a full sweep, and maybe that's coming soon. I agree. Who else would have coached if we let go of Chad today, and who would be the GM if we let go of Casper? So maybe those changes are coming. I think like what Black said, that needs to be a team. I don't know if you can bring in a brand new coach with a GM who's been here for a long, long time and not gotten results and have them mesh completely. So maybe I'd love to see a GM hire very soon, and then the GM plays a part in the coach so that they're on the same page style-wise.
So bringing things back to the action on the field tonight, we obviously talked a little bit about, very briefly mentioned, DC United traded Federico Higuain to hang out with his brother in Miami. We got some GAM back and immediately shipped that in order to get an international spot to reactivate Edison Flores, who did have some minutes tonight, which was great to see him. But we got to award man of the match, so who's first?
Own goal. Own goal has come back. Major signing in the post-Olsen era. Got that goal. Love to see the team score. I appreciate Mora taking the opportunity. I think the team gave it to Mora for his proximity to the goal scoring there.
First shot.
I think for me it was Moreno. I think he was solid in the midfield, doing what we needed him to do, really animated and getting involved across the board, and it was good to see that out of him. So for me, it's Moreno.
I'll go. For me, it was Yamil Zad. I thought he played really well tonight. He plays opposite of Gressel. Gressel plays this laid, like, kind of backed off, whipping crosses. And Assad, both wingers can't do that, and Assad did that well tonight. He was in the mix. He almost hit a long-range shot that I think the goalkeeper tipped over the bar. Otherwise, it would have gone in. I liked what I saw out of him.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Moreno as well. I thought he played really well. He actually created some chances in the attacking third as well, which was nice to see. There's a lot to like about what we saw tonight. And if they can continue to replicate this, I think we're going to have much more exciting man of the match conversations. It's funny you mentioned the goal there. I was very frustrated, just when it happened, and obviously, of course, the ball goes in the back of the net, but like, Mora had two guys that he could have easily laid it off to, and probably would have had a much better shot, or at least a shot on target. But hey, the ball went in, and that's all you got to do. Sam?
I'm actually going to give it to Gressel for kind of whipping in those chances. I think that acknowledging that this lineup really played more to his strengths. He's been a lot of a disappointment this season for me. And I think he came out a lot better this game and kind of showed his talents a little bit more. And I'm going to honorable mention it to Pines, because while there's some question about that second goal, I think he had some opportunities at the other end, and we're all just like crossing our fingers and waiting for his first official, second in our hearts MLS goal to come out.
Well, that wraps up, tonight's game. And Sam, looking around the league and around the world, what should we be keeping our eye on for?
Are you referencing something specific?
Yeah, in the show notes. Yeah, look at that. We got a whole segment for you now.
Okay, I don't have the show notes in front of me. Sorry, because I'm looking at Twitter. Thank you.
Sorry, I set you up for failure.
Thank you, Black. So for DC United specifically, I did want to point out that it is. Just in the U.S., right? It's Hispanic Heritage Month, and DC United. There goes my mic. Has been really promoting that. They have a Spanish-speaking happy hour that they're going to have on social media that Claudia is going to run with some Hispanic players. I don't know if they've named who those players are yet. They're doing a social media takeover, and then the game on Wednesday is going to be dedicated to Hispanic Heritage Month. The team did tweet out tweet today, which I retweeted. It was about information on how to vote and where to register and everything like that. And they kind of voted it out in English and in Spanish, which was a great first step. I think that a lot of the fan base for many, many years now have kind of been calling for either the same tweets in the same account to be tweeted out in Spanish, or kind of a Spanish specific account tweeting out the exact same information just in Spanish. Obviously, there's a very, very big Hispanic base in DC, a Hispanic fan base. So that was a really great first step, and I'm really hopeful that we're going to see that from DC United, not just this month, but really expanded throughout. And then the second shout out is just that it's coming out day. So congrats kind of to everyone who's been able to celebrate today, and whether you're out or not. I hope that you know that on the podcast we really support you. Sometimes it's harder than others to come out. So if you haven't been able to for whatever reason, we do still support you and see you, and we're very LGBTQ friendly on this podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks for the rundown, and obviously important things going on. It just kind of triggers me a bit, hearing about all the good things that DC United is doing this month for Hispanic Heritage Month, and yet, I really hope they can get this on a more permanent basis.
Oh, absolutely.
They had an account for a while. I followed it, tweeted 5 times, and then it kind of died. And I don't understand how Telemundo 44 isn't a simulcast with Spanish commentary, or El Sol. It could be the maybe the only radio broadcast this team can get is in Spanish, and I'll take it.
Right?
I spent a little time, part of tonight's game I spent in the car, and I had to have the stream on going through Bluetooth instead of it's not even available on Sirius XM, right? How is there not a radio broadcast? So things to grow on. Yeah,
and I think it's super important for everyone to continue asking for this, right? I think we need to acknowledge that the pandemic has happened, and DC United has had as a pretty bare bones. They've had to lay off some people. We obviously don't know the specific finances of DC United. Hopefully they're going to either be hired back, or there's going to be extended hiring once fans are back in and finances get a little bit more in check. But I think none of us on the podcast speak Spanish, right? At least definitely not fluently.
Solo me un poquito. The best I can do on a moment's notice.
Yeah, as someone who took French for her whole life, I don't speak Spanish, but I know that is something that a lot of people would really benefit from. So I think it's important for everybody to kind of ask this of the team and make it known that this is important. I wouldn't personally have any use from that Spanish account, right? But I would love to see it for the Spanish speaking fans. So I would encourage everybody to kind of reach out, either tweet it or let your ticket rep know, and just let it know that that's something important to you. Likewise, just with knowing your voting rights, or with Black Lives Matter and having a continued presence and making that movement really stick within DC United. As a fan, you do have a voice, and I just encourage you to use that voice and let the front office know what you want to see from them.
Yeah, and speaking of which, Sam, the Hispanic Heritage Month game is this upcoming Wednesday. That's DC United's next game against the Philadelphia Union. God, it's got to go better than it did the last time. Hopefully things are trending in the right direction, and if they play like they did tonight, it should be another entertaining game. That's an 8 p.m. kickoff, so we'll be with you at around 10 p.m. on your Wednesday night. But thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Hopefully some of y'all or most of y'all are off of work tomorrow. But if not, we'll be chatting with you on Wednesday night right here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken.